Welcome to Train Kitchen. My name is Sarah and I welcome you to my wire tree tutorial. I'm building an O-scale model railroad, but I don't yet have my layout room prepared. So in the meantime I'm building sketches of my future layout in my basement. The current project is a river scene, where I of course need trees. The trees in this video are O-scale, but the technique works well for smaller scales. It took me 7 to 8 hours to build this tree here, so it's quite labor intensive, but on the other hand, these trees are not meant to be background trees. So for my river scene I might only use 2 or 3 of these complex trees. Before we get started we need a couple of things. Florist wire, liquid latex, the more viscous the better, spray adhesive, some basic tools, super glue and the corresponding activator, a blender, some potting soil, oil color and turpentine, coarse turf, seafoam twigs. I use this Noch box. Good music. And the current issue of Austria's Farmer's Gazette, because it's getting quite messy and you really want to cover your workbench. We start with a bundle of wire and I use this wooden dowel as a core. There's nothing special about the wire structure of the trees. Very important for me is the mounting device. I found this very useful. I try to end up with 3 or 4 wires at the end of every branch. The next step is the first layer of latex. The latex is easy to work with. I'm using a German brand that I just ordered online. You might already have found out that English is not my mother language. I know. I hope you don't mind. Working time so far, almost 2 hours. The tree has now received its first layer. There will be another layer added, so you don't really have to think about imperfections. When drying, the latex shrinks a little. You can add more structure by adding more latex layers. I, however, decided to go with only that one. Now it's time to make the bark. First we need to dry the soil in the oven. Be sure to wear a mask here. The potting soil is extremely dry and you really don't want to breathe that into your lungs. You can use the bark as is or make different grades. The bark is created by sprinkling the soil directly on the wet latex of the second layer. The bark will remain soft, and I avoid touching the tree at the trunk throughout the process. To prevent the latex from drying out, I work only in small areas. The latex is getting a little bit dirty, but I just didn't care. And you can easily peel off the latex when it's dried from your pencil. I wanted the color to be more grayish. One good thing about this technique is that you can tint the color of the bark to pretty much every tone you like. I do that with a kind of an oil wash. I thin the oil paint with turpentine. The bark sucks up the paint and distributes it in a very natural way. You can repeat this process and add more layers of paint until you are finally satisfied. The tinting process will also help fixing the dusty bark in place. As you can see, I go over it again and again, many layers, wet in wet, just until I like it. The tree really deserved some drying time. You can use a lot of different textures for your bark. I made this test stick to try out different grades of potting soil. In this example, I sprinkled coffee powder over the latex. I really like the outcome. Somebody's really got to clean up the train kitchen. But before that, we have to create the foliage. I used the product by Diorama per Sepe of Italy. I will add a link in the description of this video. Adding the spray adhesive can be a bit messy. When I made my first tree, I glued the seafoam twigs without foliage. However, I found it much easier to add the turf in the first place. Alright, now comes the fun part. I add a drop of high viscosity superglue. The piece of seafoam is being dipped into it. And then sprayed with activator. To reinforce the branches and to hide the transition, I apply again some latex. Again, some potting soil is going to be sprinkled on carefully. Since it is so dry, it will stick only to the latex and can be blown off easily. The wire core of the tree allows for easy manipulation. With all the leaves in place, the tree is practically finished. Remember that this tree is O-scale and quite complex and big. The same tree in HO scale would be much faster to complete. It took me 7 to 8 hours to build this particular tree. I hope you enjoyed the video and give the technique a try.